The pounding on my door at 6:47 in the morning wasn't just loud, it was violent, deliberata, the kind of sound that makes your heart stop before your brain has time to process what's happening. I was already awake, sitting at my desk with a cup of cold coffee, staring at lines of code on my screen. The rhythmic hammering shattered the silence of my San Francisco loft like gunfire. Then came my mother's voice, shrill and desperate, cutting through the industrial steel door. Maya, please. It's Vivian. She collapsed. She's not breathing. We need help. I didn't move. I sat perfectly still, my fingers hovering over my keyboard, and I watched. Not the door. The screen. My security camera feed showed 3 figures in the hallway outside. My father, Roland, standing rigid with his arms crossed. My mother, Patricia, with her hand pressed dramatically to her chest, mouth open in what was supposed to be horror. And my sister, Vivian, leaning against the wall, scrolling through her phone. Perfectly fine, perfectly conscious, perfectly alive. I watched my mother's face on that grainy camera feed, the same face that looked away when I showed her the cigarette burn marks on my arms 12 years ago. The same face that told me I was lying when I said Vivian's friends did it. The same face that chose her over me, every single time. She was better at this than I remembered. My hand trembled as I reached for my coffee mug. The liquid inside rippled like a tiny earthquake. I looked down at my forearm, at the cluster of circular scars that never quite faded, and I felt that old familiar numbness creeping in, the one that kept me safe, the one that kept me breathing when everything else told me to stop. The pounding continued, harder now, more insistent. Then I heard it. The click of the electronic lock, the emergency master key, the one Roland had somehow obtained, probably charmed out of the building manager with one of his smooth real estate developer speeches. The door swung open, and my family poured into my home like poison into a clean wound. If you're already hooked and want to see how this story of betrayal and justice unfolds, hit that subscribe button right now. You won't want to miss what happens next. Trust me. Vivian walked in first, her heels clicking on my concrete floor. Not a hair out of place, her phone still glowing in her manicured hand. She didn't even glance at me, just swept her eyes around my minimalist apartment with that look, the one that said she was cataloguing everything I didn't have, everything she thought I should want. Patricia followed, positioning herself by the door, blocking my exit. She'd done this before, in different rooms, different years. Always the sentry, always making sure I couldn't run. Roland came last. He closed the door behind him with a soft, careful click that was somehow more threatening than if he'd slammed it. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. He walked to my desk, to the space I'd built as my sanctuary, and he placed it down with the weight of a bomb. "We need to talk, Maya," he said, and his voice had that quality it always did. Reasonable, calm. The voice of a man who always got what he wanted. I finally looked at him. Really looked at him. At 58, Roland Chen still carried himself like he owned every room he entered. Silver hair perfectly styled. Expensive suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. Everything about him screamed control. "Get out," I said. My voice came out quieter than I wanted. Vivian laughed. Actually laughed. "That's cute. The hermit giving orders." She gestured around my loft with a dismissive wave. "Living in this concrete box, eating ramen like you're still in grad school, while I actually have a life worth protecting." "Vivian took a loan," Roland said, cutting through the tension like he was chairing a board meeting. "From the Horizon Foundation, the Disaster Relief Fund." I felt my stomach drop. The Horizon Foundation. I'd built their security system 2 years ago. State-of-the-art blockchain architecture for tracking cryptocurrency donations. Completely transparent, completely immutable, completely unhackable. Unless you had administrative access. Unless you were the one who built it. "Oh, much?" I asked, though I already knew this was going to be bad. $340,000, Roland said, like he was discussing the weather. The number hung in the air between us. I looked at Vivian, at her designer bag, her fresh highlights, the diamond bracelet catching the grey morning light. $340,000 of money meant for earthquake victims, flood survivors, families who'd lost everything. "The board audit is in 72 hours, Patricia said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was soft, pleading, the voice she used when she wanted me to be reasonable, to be the good daughter. "We just need you to make a few adjustments." Adjustments, I repeated. Roland picked up the USB drive and held it out to me. Transaction timestamps, a few wallet addresses that need to be created retroactively. You built the system, Maya. You know how to make this look legitimate. I stared at the drive in his hand like it was a snake. You want me to forge an immutable blockchain ledger. That's not editing a spreadsheet, Dad. That's federal wire fraud. Don't be dramatic, Vivian snapped. She was looking at me now, really looking, and I saw something in her eyes I'd seen my whole life. Not love, not even hate, just cold calculation. You owe me this. After everything I've put up with, having you as a sister. The weird one. The one who made our family look bad. If you don't help, Roland said, his voice dropping lower, more dangerous, we tell the FBI you're the one who stole it. Your fingerprints are still in their system from when you consulted. Your credentials are still active. You're the perfect suspect, Maya. The troubled loner with the technical skills and the access. And there it was. The real reason they were here. Not to ask for help, to trap me. To use my own expertise as the weapon that would destroy me. I felt something crack open inside my chest. Not my heart. That had broken too many times to break again. Something deeper. Something that had been holding me together with wire and hope for 32 years. My hands stopped shaking. I pulled my laptop toward me and opened it. Roland leaned over my shoulder, confident now, probably already planning how he'd spin this to his country club friends. Another crisis managed. Another problem solved. I typed rapidly, my fingers flying across the keyboard. The familiar rhythm of code, of systems of logic that didn't lie or manipulate or burn you with cigarettes when you trusted the wrong people. Transaction initiated. The soft ping of completion echoed in the quiet loft. Roland smiled. Patricia exhaled in relief. Vivian went back to her phone. What did you send? Roland asked, already turning toward the door. I rotated the laptop so they could all see the screen. Transaction, $25. Recipient, Vivian Chen, public wallet. Memo, federal conspiracy, wire fraud facilitation, transaction log 001. The colour drained from Roland's face. Patricia made a small choking sound. Vivian's head snapped up from her phone, eyes wide. That's your first payment, I said, and my voice was steady now. Strong. For attempting to involve me in federal wire fraud. Blockchain is permanent, traceable, time-stamped. Every cop, every federal prosecutor, every court in the world can see this transaction forever. They can see the memo. They can track it back to this moment, this conversation, this attempted conspiracy. You wouldn't dare, Roland hissed, but I could see it in his eyes. Fear. Real fear. Get out of my home, I said, now. For the first time in my entire life, I watched my father retreat. Patricia grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the door, already whispering frantically about lawyers and damage control. They made it 3 steps. Then Vivian stopped. She stood perfectly still in the middle of my living room, and she turned to look at me. For just a second, I saw something pass between her and Roland. A glance. A signal. Something that made my blood run cold. Then Vivian ran. Not toward the door. Toward the doorframe. Full speed, like a sprinter off the blocks. I opened my mouth to shout, to ask what she was doing, but the words never came. She hit the industrial steel doorframe face first with a sound I'll never forget. A wet, crunching impact that made my stomach turn inside out. Blood exploded from her nose. Her lips split open where her teeth cut through. She dropped to the floor, screaming. And I just stood there, frozen, watching. The same way I'd been frozen at 8 years old when she broke the window and blamed me. At 14, when she stole my savings and called me a liar. At 20, when her friends burned me and everyone believed her tears instead of my scars. Patricia started wailing. She attacked her. Vivian just wanted to talk and she attacked her. Roland already had his phone out. 911, my daughter has been assaulted. 4th floor, Mission District. Please hurry, she's bleeding badly. Vivian looked up at me from the floor, blood streaming down her face, and she smiled. Just a little, just enough for me to see. Why would you do this to me, Maya? She moaned, loud enough for the phone to pick up. The sirens started almost immediately. They must have been close. Or maybe Roland had planned that too. The coordination, the timing, the perfect frame. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't defend myself. Something in my brain had shut down completely. The same protective mechanism that had kept me alive through childhood, but now, right now, was going to destroy me. The door crashed open. 4 officers, weapons drawn, shouting commands I couldn't process. I saw them take in the scene. Blood-covered Vivian on the floor, me standing over her, my family crying and pointing. The assumption was instant. On the ground. Now. My hands went up automatically, muscle memory from some distant part of my brain that still functioned. But I was somewhere else. I was 20 years old again, showing my mother the burns, hearing her say I was lying. I was 14, watching Vivian count my money while I got grounded. I was 8, standing in front of broken glass, trying to explain something no one would believe. The handcuffs clicked shut around my wrists. They walked me past my family, past Roland, who wouldn't meet my eyes, past Patricia, still sobbing theatrically, past Vivian, who was being tended to by a paramedic. As they led me out, Vivian and I locked eyes for just a second. She winked. If you're feeling the rage, the injustice of this moment, drop a like on this video. Let me know you're with Maya on this journey. The holding cell at SFPD Central Station was exactly what you'd expect. Cold, grey, fluorescent lights that hummed with a frequency designed to drive you slowly insane. I sat on the metal bench and stared at my hands. These hands had built unhackable systems, had written code that protected millions of dollars, had created security architectures that governments used. These hands had 3 patents to their name, and they were shaking like a child's. The numbness was wearing off, replaced by something worse. Not panic, not fear. Something deeper and older. A voice in my head that sounded like my mother's. You deserve this. You've always been difficult. Always been the problem. Maybe this is just who you are. I looked at the scars on my arm. 12 years old and still visible. Still there. Evidence that no one had believed. How many times was I going to let them do this to me? The question echoed in my skull, bouncing off the concrete walls of the cell and the harder walls I'd built around my heart. How many times? I took a breath. Then another. The kind of breathing they taught you in therapy, the sessions I'd paid for myself when I was 22, and finally realized that family isn't supposed to feel like drowning. I am Dr. Maya Chen. I have 3 patents in blockchain forensics. I've testified before Congress twice. I've exposed corruption in 17 countries. I've built systems that banks and governments trust with billions of dollars. And I will not be erased by people who don't understand that lies leave fingerprints. I stood up, walked to the cell bars, called for the guard. I need my phone call, I said, and my voice didn't shake. 2 hours later, I sat across from Detective Sarah Kovac in Interrogation Room 3B. She was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, with sharp eyes and a file folder in front of her that I knew contained my family's carefully crafted fiction. Dr. Chen, she said, her voice neutral. Your family has made some serious allegations. I'm sure they have. She opened the folder. They say you demanded $340,000 from them to cover gambling debts. When they refused, you became violent and attacked your sister Vivian. They say they've been afraid of you for years, that you have mental health issues. I almost laughed. The script was so predictable, so perfectly Roland. Detective Kovac, I said, leaning forward. What time did my father call 9111? She blinked, surprised by the question. Checked her notes. 6:41 a.m. And what time did he swipe his building access card to enter my apartment building? Another glance at the papers. 6:43 a.m. I let that sit for a moment. Watched her process it. My father called 911 and reported an assault 6 minutes before he even entered the building. He called police before reaching the 4th floor, before the door to my apartment opened, before any alleged assault could have possibly occurred. I kept my voice calm. Clinical. That's not a worried parent responding to violence, Detective. That's a staged operation. Something shifted in her expression. Just slightly. The skepticism becoming interest. My building requires keycard access, I continued. Every entry is logged, time-stamped. The security footage will show my family entering calmly. No emergency, no unconscious sister. It will show them inside my apartment for 7 minutes before Vivian injured herself. Injured herself? Ran face first into my doorframe. Deliberately, on command. I held her gaze. Why do you think they haven't mentioned the security cameras, Detective? Kovac left the room. I sat in silence, alone with the hum of the fluorescent lights and the distant sounds of the station beyond the walls. When the door opened again 20 minutes later, it wasn't just Detective Kovac. Marcus Webb walked in behind her, my attorney, sharp-eyed and efficient in his pressed suit. His face told me everything before he said a word. The security DVR was destroyed, Marcus said without preamble. Someone put a fire extinguisher through the hard drive during the commotion of the police arrival, according to your father. He claims it was accidental. In his distress, I felt the floor drop out from under me. The $25 transaction looks like extortion now, Marcus continued, his voice gentler. No video to prove your sister's self-harm. No evidence of their coercion, just their word against yours. 3 witnesses. 1 defendant with mental health issues. I closed my eyes, saw the inside of my cell, saw years stretching ahead, saw Vivian's smile as they led me away. Then I opened them again. Marcus, I said quietly, what kind of idiot would a security systems expert be if she didn't have cloud backup? For the first time since I'd known him, Marcus Webb smiled. The video played on a laptop in that same interrogation room 30 minutes later. Detective Kovac watched in silence. So did a man in a dark suit who'd introduced himself as Special Agent Morrison from the FBI. They saw it all. My family entering with no emergency. Vivian checking her phone. Roland placing the USB drive on my desk with careful precision. The audio was crisp enough to catch every word of their demands, every threat, every attempt at coercion. They saw me create the $25 transaction, saw the memo I'd typed, visible in crystal clarity. Then came the moment that changed everything. Vivian stopping at the door, looking back at Roland. That silent signal passing between them. Her positioning, the deliberate run, the impact, the immediate performance of victimhood. And Roland's 9/11 call, made before the injury, before the blood, before any assault. The video showed Patricia coaching Vivian in a whisper they thought no one could hear. Make it look real, baby. Remember, she's always been violent. When the footage ended, the room was silent for 15 seconds. Detective Kovac closed the laptop slowly, looked at me with something I'd never seen from anyone in uniform before. Respect. The $25 transaction wasn't extortion, Agent Morrison said. It was documentation, a time-stamped record of their attempt to involve you in wire fraud. Marcus pulled out his own laptop and brought up a legal document. The original scheme, attempting to manipulate blockchain records across state lines using internet communications, constitutes federal wire fraud. The false police report, the coordinated conspiracy, the attempted destruction of evidence, and the use of interstate communications for criminal purposes all fall under RICO statutes. What kind of sentence are we talking about? Kovac asked. Wire fraud carries up to 20 years, Marcus said. RICO adds another 20. Conspiracy, false reports, evidence tampering. We're looking at a minimum of 20 years federal prison. No bail for flight risk. Agent Morrison stood, made a phone call, gave brief instructions, hung up. We have agents en route to your father's office now, Dr. Chen, and to your sister's residence. I sat back in my chair. The weight I'd been carrying for 32 years, the weight of always being the problem, always being the one who was wrong, always being the one who didn't deserve to be believed, that weight was finally lifting. I asked. You can go home, Kovac said. 3 weeks later, I stood at my loft window watching the sunset paint the San Francisco skyline in shades of orange and gold. My coffee was hot this time, steam curling up in delicate spirals. Below, the street was quiet, normal, no black SUVs, no federal agents. That part was over. Roland, Patricia, and Vivian were awaiting trial. No vial, just like Agent Morrison had said. My phone buzzed. A text from a friend I'd been slowly letting back into my life. Dinner tonight? There's a new Thai place in North Beach. I smiled and typed back. Yes. One word, but it felt like freedom. For 32 years, I thought family was supposed to hurt. That loyalty meant enduring their poison. That blood mattered more than truth. I thought love was supposed to feel like drowning, like holding your breath, like making yourself smaller so they could feel bigger. But the truth is simpler than that. DNA is just chemistry, a sequence of proteins that determines the color of your eyes and the shape of your nose. Love is a choice, and some people will never choose you, so you choose yourself instead. The ledger is balanced now. The evidence doesn't lie, and I am finally free. I walked back to my desk, to the clean lines of code waiting for me, to work that made sense, to systems built on logic instead of manipulation, to a life I was building brick by brick, line by line, decision by decision. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt like I could breathe. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt trapped by family, by loyalty that only went one direction, by love that felt like poison, leave a comment below. Tell me your story. You're not alone. And hey, subscribe to the channel for more stories of justice, betrayal, and people who refuse to stay victims. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, because some stories need to be told, some truths need to be spoken, and some people need to know that surviving isn't the same as living, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself. The scars on my arm will never fully fade, but they don't define me anymore. They're just evidence, just proof of survival, just marks on skin that tell a story I no longer have to carry alone. I opened my laptop, started typing. A new security protocol, a new system, a new beginning. And outside my window, the city lights began to glow against the darkening sky, each one a small beacon of possibility in the approaching night.